All right, we're live. Say hello.
Let's do it. Hey,
All right, Shareef, thanks, man.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for...
It's good to be here in my house.
I know, man. As I said, it's very peaceful. It's beautiful out here. Thank you for having me in your home.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Guys, if you don't know who this is Shareef Malnik. Actually, let me even go before that. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Alex Vidal. I am president of Related ISG International Realty and host of the show. You are watching The Closer Club. This is a very, very special episode. This is actually number 75. I have never missed a week, 75 weeks in a row, and I wanted to make sure that the guest that we had on for number 75 was extra special. And Shareef Malnik, who is sitting to my right, is not only a business icon, but he is a Miami icon. We're sitting here in his home, his beautiful home in Coconut Grove. Shareef, you're the owner of the Forge restaurant, which is probably one of the most well-known restaurants in the world, not only in Miami, or not even the country, but in the world. You're the chairman of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, well, let's get started. So tell us a little bit. I mean, you Miami law school graduate, which was impressive when I was reading up on you, which is cool. I'm actually a Gator through marriage. My wife is a Gator. I didn't go to college. So you're a Cane, graduate of law school, Miami Law School. You raced boats. I love the pictures in your office.
Oh, thanks.
You acted even. You're the owner of the Forge. You're the chairman of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Tell us a little bit about your path to where you are today.
Well, you know, thinking about my life and going back and how did I get here, you know, it's a circuitous route, really, to try to go from A to B. It's not a straight line.
Yeah.
You know, if it was, we'd be efficient machines and robots.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing on my journey to where I'm at today, and I'm still on a very big journey, a very intense journey to reach my potential, you know, to have the most impact on the world, positive impact on the world that I can, is by being open-minded, by wanting to learn, and by realizing that I don't know everything. That's really been critical. Yeah. So I've taken advantage of opportunity. I've pivoted many times. I'm in a big transformational, moment right now. You have certain things and opportunities that come up, and some you pass on, and some you gravitate towards. And sometimes the one you pass may have been really important, and sometimes the ones you grab aren't. But they're all good because you learn from everything that you do. And I have an expression, a quote on my wall at NextWave, one of the many quotes that I have, and it's success is 99% failure. It's really true. I mean,
success is 99% failure. I love that.
Absolutely. Because if you didn't fail 99 times to get that big success, that means the success that you probably got on round one is probably not that big.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for the kind of go big or go home moments in life, then you're going to have a lot of iterations in what you're doing, a lot of failures. Failures are really good.
Yeah.
Problems are great, because they fine tune and sharpen your ability to solve problems. The more successful you are, the more problems you're going to have. So you have to be careful what you ask for. And so I've just kind of had that attitude. I went back to school now again. I'm in the Global Executive MBA program at Miami because I want to sharpen more skills and more financial skills. And if you're just going to move forward in life based upon what you know, you're only gonna go as far as what you know.
Sure.
If you're not rapidly absorbing more information, whether it be in technology or finance or analytics or whatever your marketing, whatever your thing is, and understand what are people today doing that is better than what you learned 10 or 20 years ago, then you're just going to be, the status quo for the rest of your life.
So, curious question, because it's not on here. So you went back to the University of Miami for that. What other ways are you going about educating yourself? I know books, obviously. You had a ton of books. Ton. I mean, you have a huge library on your desk. You had a bunch of books. We're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast. But what other ways? Do you watch a lot of podcasts yourself and all that, or is it mainly education in school and books?
I'm always learning every single day. So, number one is I learned by not being the smartest person in the room.
Got it.
I don't want to be the smartest person. I want people around me that are smarter than I am, that lift me. I don't want to be dragged down, and my ego doesn't need to be smart, as far as other people are concerned. academics is really important. So, I graduated in December, and I had to really get rid of my ego to go and do this. Everybody's like, "Oh, are you teaching it?" I'm like, "No." And everybody's like, "You don't need to do that." I'm like, "Yes, I do." "Well, you know everything you need to know about your businesses." I'm like, "No, I don't." And the proof of the pudding is that in this program, I've applied so many things to my businesses that have made a huge impact.
Sure.
So academics is really important. Reading, critical. So I'm constantly reading, and whether it be spiritual reading, to business reading, to mathematics, to whatever I can to, increase, my tool, put more tools in my toolbox.
Absolutely.
It's really, especially since things are changing so rapidly. Having great and smart people around you is really important. And I don't have a lot of time to listen to podcasts because I run out of time, in my day between, my day work and my night work, and I have to train every day too. That's really critical,
absolutely.
In my life. But I think those are my channels of my learning channels.
Now, looking back, so you're back in school, but you've obviously run a very successful business in The Forge, and you run a very successful charity because it gives an amazing amount back to the community, to the children that need it. You have Next Wave funding as well that we were talking about off camera. What would you say are the top 3 business lessons that you've learned in your experience so far? Let's put some tools in the toolbox of the viewers.
Top 3 business lessons. Number 1 is don't quit. If you have an idea, if you have an idea that it's a bad idea, okay, pivot. But let's talk about things that are good ideas, that are feasible. Don't quit because, like I said before, success is 99% failure.
Sure.
Okay, another quote I have on my wall is, nothing is successful until it is accomplished, right? So we don't need to celebrate our successes because we're not successful until it's done. And it's really critical to stay in the game. If you quit, it's not going to happen. And the greatest success stories in the world were, persevered under the worst of circumstances. So don't quit. Okay. That would be number 1. Number 2 is, let's see. Well, I said it before. Get great talent around you, so you're not the smartest person in the room. Right? Really, really important. And I think finally, let's see. We persevere. We never quit. I guess
surround yourself with the right people.
Stay with the right people and stay positive.
Sure. I think that's huge, right?
Yeah.
I think we do this coaching program, and I've mentioned it on the show before, but the very first thing we cover in our coaching program is mindset. Because you could be the best at business, you could be the best at closing somebody, you could be the best at forming a relationship, but if you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, so leadership, leadership is about having a vision, staying on that vision tenaciously, but being able to communicate and express that vision so you get a buy-in by all the people that are following you. And if you can't get people to follow you, you won't get there. There's some great stories like Sir Ernest Shackleton, who was going to be the first in this great book called Endurance. That was the name of his ship, appropriately named. And he wanted to be the first person to cross the Antarctic. And he recruited an entire team of sailors and requisitioned, the government to put together a ship that could make this trip. And he wants to, break this world record, and it's very dangerous. And as soon as they arrived to the Antarctic, the ship got stuck in an ice, ice pack. So now they're screwed. And it took them a year to get off.
A year?
A year. It's a miracle that they made it, and they only made it really due to his leadership. And the leadership was also in preparing of who to recruit.
Sure.
And then, he's a great leader because people would start killing each other to survive, right? So he had to make sure. So what he did was he took the people who were the most negative, right? It only takes one negative person to sink a ship, excuse the pun. And he would bring them into his tent to stay with him so he can keep control over them and so that they wouldn't also invade and spread this virus of negativity throughout the
Interesting.
group.
So rather than pushing them away, he brought them even closer.
That's right.
I love that.
So leadership, right? So if we want to succeed in business, we have to be a great leader, and that includes having fire in the belly and being understanding, compassionate, and recruiting the right people. Because if you have the wrong people and there's a disaster, They're going to abandon ship or they're going to mutiny.
Sure. There's a great TED Talk by Simon Sinek about the power of why, and he talks about the Wright brothers and how the Wright brothers founded flight versus this other group, and I don't remember their names. Nobody really knows about them because they didn't discover it. But he talks about the team that they had, the Wright brothers had versus his other guy, even though the other guy had all the money in the world. Just the Wright brothers accomplished it because of the team. Let's talk. So I'm the complete opposite. I don't read. I listen to podcasts. I put 30,000 miles in my car in like a year because I'm always traveling to our different offices. So I'm always listening to podcasts. The one book I read that I pretty much live my life on is Raving Fans. Now, the Forge has been in business how long now? It's almost
50 years.
Right? 50 years, and Make-A-Wish is sustained on the donors who buy into the vision of what Make-A-Wish is. So what would you say are the best ways to create raving fans? Because if not, you wouldn't be in restaurants come and go, but to be in business 50 years, let alone 50 years in Miami, you have major raving fans of the Forge, and that's something that you guys have created. So what are some ways that you can create raving fans out of the customers?
Well, I think first and foremost we have to realize that if you're not a manufacturing company, you're in the service business.
Sure. And that's we have all realtors watching, so definitely.
Right. So service means hospitality, right? Above service. Just merely servicing somebody, you could service somebody and they could be miserable, right? You're not providing all of the upgraded elements that create hospitality. So I think hospitality is really important. But I think also it's really important, and I think this also goes back to, I want to add something to lessons learned in business.
Please, go for it.
But it applies here too, and that's innovation. Because innovation is the most important part about business. In order not to get disrupted, in order to keep people interested in what you're doing, you have to continually innovate. You have to innovate even to stay in the same place that you're at now.
That's right.
If you don't innovate and you start receding, at some point there's this law of diminishing returns where you can't recover anymore. You'll never gain enough traction. So I think innovation is probably the most undervalued element, and maybe it's the most important thing that there is.
Do you think we'll come back to the raving fans. This is an interesting topic about innovation, particularly in our business with technology, which I feel is trying to put us out of business. Do you think there's too much? Could there be too much innovation? There's a bug flying around.
Well, personally, it depends on from what perspective you're talking. So eventually the country is going to have to deal with the fact that there's going to be a lot of unemployment because innovation is going to take over almost every job. There's no question about it, right? So from the people who are unemployed, I would say that we're going to need to do something from that perspective. From the perspective, though, where we're at today, purely in business, I don't think so. I think that the more innovation, the better. We're, as business people, are trying to get the most efficient operation as possible. We want to produce a product or deliver a service efficiently in the best way possible, and technology often enhances that. And if it doesn't enhance it, we won't use it. So me personally, I'm not at a point where I think that there's anything as too much innovation. The world is changing, and we have to accept the fact that the world 200 years from now is going to be completely different than it is today. I mean, there would be no recognition of what we're doing right now, which is archaic and old school. Even now, it's archaic and old school to what it's going to be like in 200 years, right? So, we're
going to look at 200 years from now. People are going to be looking at us the same way we look at people 200 years ago.
Caveman.
That's right.
We're just cavemen.
So what do you think is the number one thing that contributes to the raving fans of the Forge? Is it the service? Is it the food? Is it the combination of the service and the food?
I think it's hospitality. I think it's the quality of the product that we deliver, the food. It's the ambiance. It's the legend. It's the marketing. I think it's a blend of all those ingredients that create fans, and it's the message that we're sending. Like, what does the brand stand for? The brand stands for entertainment, fun, enjoyment, but it also stands for permanence, stability, reputation, integrity. I think you can go back to, like, if you've read any Ayn Rand, for example, which is really old school, but unbelievably poignant today even, okay? and that is that you can't separate who you are from your business. There's no such thing as, well, my personal values are here and my business values are there. You are your business, and your business is you. Right. There is no difference. So what does your business stand for? Does people sense that? Your customers know that either you stand for integrity and your business stands for integrity, or it doesn't. So I've always, believed and hope always to stand for integrity, and that anything that I'm associated with carries those values.
Sure.
And those values also are important that my employees and the members of our business family have too, that they're congruent and synonymous with the values that we have as leaders.
I love that brand is so important. I think, again, most of my audience are realtors, and they just think about the sales, and they really don't put much thought into, when people hear their name, what are people thinking of them? What's the brand? What do they stand for, even as an individual? I think there's a guy I interviewed out in Vegas, Brad Lee, and he was telling me he owns a big Lightspeed VT. They host all the online training for like Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Damon John. He goes, people don't follow companies anymore. People follow people, and you have that. So you hit that on the head.
Well, like for example, if you own a restaurant, or a funding company like my finance business, and you say, well, I stand for helping the community. I'm chairman emeritus of Make-A-Wish. But in the restaurant, I'm cheating you on the check, or I don't disclose something in a cash advance that I'm trying to give to a merchant, who needs the money. It's like, okay, so you're a hypocrite, like your business and you have to match. They have to mirror each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually great advice. I love that. So let's talk about mindset. You talked about being positive all the time, and I remember when I started following you, before the idea of even having you on the show came up, I saw that you broke your leg. I mean, like you didn't just break it. You broke both. I mean, you had a really nasty injury. Yeah. What systems did you have, or do you have in place to kind of tackle that on mentally and keep pushing forward every day?
So the same things that we talked about our business apply to us. Because if they don't apply to us, then they're never going to apply to our business. So if I say never quit, I can't never quit in my business, but quit my personal life, right? So when I broke my leg, I went to stand up, and the bones of my leg were broken inside my ski boot for being a knucklehead and skiing way too fast on ice. Malcolm Gladwell calls it, thin slicing. Like my brain did a million calculations subconsciously, like, whoa, what did I just do to myself, right? So I just went into fast, fifth gear, and I said, I'm going to get through this. So within 2 weeks, I was in the gym on my knees, and I trained for 4 months on my knees. I did physical therapy every single day, and I worked out in my gym every single day for a year, right? Within 11 months, I was back on the ski slopes, and now I'm going back now for my second season after I broke my leg. But I thought it would be much easier than it was. I had blinders on, and I was obsessed with getting through this, because I knew that if I didn't do that, I'd probably limp the rest of my life, and I'd find a reason never to ski again. So I just went, full at it. I contacted Lee Kaplan, the head of sports medicine at UM. He put me in the aggressive athletic training. Donnie Raymond, who is he trains LeBron James. He's a biomechanics. He wrote all my programs, had me training on my knees. Mark Megna, former Patriot football player and owns Anatomy Gym. He started to give me advice and help me through the situation until we could start training again, doing agility. I just grinned and bared it. But I have to say, it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I picked up on a key word you said. You became obsessed. Yeah. And I think in order to get through certain situations in your life, you have to become obsessed with getting to the other side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I try to. Every time I have an issue or something I have to solve, I become obsessed until I find the solution to it.
Absolutely. I love it. That's key. I think a lot of it goes back to, are you interested or are you committed? When you're committed to getting to the other side, you do whatever it takes. If you're interested, the first setback, you're gone. Yeah. Now, we talked about you being a Miami icon. You're an ambassador to Miami, for Miami to a lot of people. So when people ask you what's Miami like, how do you describe Miami to them?
Well, Miami is it's a city which makes it most interesting, multidimensional, and a city full of contradictions. So there isn't one thing that describes Miami.
Yeah.
You know, there's there's the smoke and mirrors aspect of Miami.
Yep.
There's the tourist aspect of Miami. You know, there's the old school village of Miami, because when we grew up in Miami, it was just a little sleepy beach village.
Right.
You know. And so many people say to me today, like, "Oh, you're so lucky you grew up in Miami Beach." I was like, Miami Beach was dead when I grew up. Like,
it's not what it is today.
yeah, it's not. We're not coming back to something that we had. We created something that's completely new. So, you know, there's so many positives and negatives about any city, and the beautiful thing is, though, that you watch it evolve, and in the long run, you see a city that's getting better, and you see a city where, you know, buildings are being built, people are moving here, money is coming here, a city that's still, you know, aesthetically one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You know, a government in the city that, you know, has lowered crime, you know, that gives us services that are better, that we're safer in our homes. It's a city of opportunity. You know, it used to be, I have to say, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you know, especially like in Miami Beach, it was a city of dreamers. You know, it was before progress really took hold, before we had a real, you know, business and cultural, you know, enough there to actually create something. You know, it's something that could grow from something. Critical mass is the word I was thinking of, right? Once we got to critical mass, we started to develop. But we had dreamers. People were wannabes. You know, they just came here to kind of like waste. Yeah. You know, actually before that, there were people, you know, they call it an elephant's graveyard. People would come here to die.
Correct.
And now then people came here to like con people, and people came here to try to feel important about themselves. But ultimately, this city grew because it has some really great leaders that guided us to prosperity. And so now everybody in the world wants to come here, and you can be anything here. You can be a real estate guy like yourself, super successful, a finance guy. You could be in the arts. You know, there's such a cultural element here. And then the diversity of Hispanics to non-Hispanics, I think, is probably the most important thing about South Florida and Miami. That's probably the most important thing, and it's probably maybe the main reason that we even got here to where we got is because of that diversity of population and demographic.
Well, I love what you said, and something that nobody's ever said. You can be on the show so far, because I ask a lot of people about what their thoughts on Miami. So you could be anything here. It's one of those few cities that you really could be whatever you want, and there's something for you to be successful in whatever it is that you want to do.
And you could be anything, and people don't look down at you.
Good point.
Right?
You're right.
We're an open society. And I'm going to tell you something else that is striking about South Florida, and that is that it's very, very philanthropic. Okay? We're a city of givers. Yeah. These are people who live here who have a heart, right? And they support the charities that are down here. And I think that that's even more so than any other city, and it may be, you know, the greatest thing about us.
I love that. So let's go back to the Forge, because I love stories. Anytime I meet with the agents that sell like the ultra high end, I always ask them like, what's the craziest request or whatever. Yeah. What would you say if you were to pick one of the most memorable moments you've ever had at the Forge? What would you say it'd be? Just one. Okay, so two come up, so I'm gonna. All right, share both. I love it.
You know, one is that it was in the early '90s, and the Forge, you know, it's restaurants are cyclic, and the Forge has been around a long time. So I was trying to, you know, bring in younger people, and I couldn't figure out how to make it work, and you know, because, you know, if you bring in a few younger people, but there was older people there, and the younger people didn't know the Forge. You know, the Forge had been the only, you know, like one of two restaurants in Miami Beach for so many decades that everyone knew the Forge. And now all of a sudden, in the early '90s, there's all these new people and these models and fashion industry and artists that didn't hear of the Forge, and they weren't going to go because it wasn't actually in South Beach. Yeah. So I had to figure out how to do that. I remember bumping into Mickey Rourke, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to come in one day. I heard you know, took over the Forge. I'll come in on Mother's Day." I was like, "Oh, you know, that's the image I'm trying not, you know, to promote." So I put together the first with Jason Bin, who's the founder and was the publisher of Ocean Drive magazine, along with Jerry Powers. I put together the first Ocean Drive anniversary party. Now, those anniversary parties probably for 15 or 20 years were the biggest party
Of the year.
of the year in South Florida. I mean, everybody tried to get in, every celebrity, they really started the whole thing. And so, so we did this party, and we did it on a Wednesday night, and I had just started to do a party because I wanted to invite Mickey over. I said, if I do a party on Wednesday night, and he comes, he'll see all these people here, and everyone will think it's like that every night. And then eventually we can do it, it'll spill over into the other nights. So we did the anniversary party for Ocean Drive on that Wednesday. And Jason says, Shareef, come. And I walked out front, and there was a line of cars from the Forge all the way up to the Julia Tuttle Causeway.
Wow.
And I said, this can work, like this can actually really work. So that was one of the most important nights of my career, of my Forge career, right? But then one night also, as we were doing these weekly events, and it was building, and every celebrity in town would come. There was just a particular night that, Madonna was in at one table, and Michael Jordan was at another table, and Dennis Rodman was at another table, and she had just written a book about Madonna, a tell-all book, and Ingrid was at another table, and Wayne Gretzky, the hockey great, was at another table. Michael Douglas came in, and I was like, but they're all unrelated, and it wasn't for a particular event. It was just my normal Wednesday place that people would come and party and hang out. And I just looked around the room, and there were more, I can't even remember, and I was just like, this is like the ultimate room. That's right. We just created something. I felt really proud. A lot of fulfillment and self-esteem, because you derive self-esteem from success.
Sure.
Success that comes from hard work, not windfall success. If you win the lottery, it doesn't build your self-esteem, it lowers it.
Correct.
Right? But if you do something, you get a good result, and you worked really hard on it, after failing many times, it builds your self-esteem.
Or a lot of haters.
Yeah. Well, the haters, I ignore them. Right. So anyway, that was a great moment, and I just said, this is why I'm alive at this moment. On that particular day, I'm living for this, and it's here, and it happens. So that was a great one.
All right, I'll wrap it up because I know you got to go and do stuff for Make-A-Wish, and I'd love for you to plug Make-A-Wish at the end if you'd like.
Yeah,
as well.
Great.
Book, podcast, or TED Talk recommendation. You had the one book for the audience to pick up and read. What would it be? And you have, I think, 1,000 books. I could easily look at 1,000 books.
Well, I got to say, and this is an oldie,
Sure.
and I read books every week, and I have some great ones. But I go back to Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and I realize the drive that these people had to commit to their businesses in their life 1,000% is so inspiring to me. The element of work ethic, to throw yourself into the fire and become obsessed, like I am with my business, like I am with my marriage, like I was with rehabbing my leg, to become completely obsessed and committed, where nothing can stand in the way, to me, is the greatest inspiration and lesson that you can learn. And Ayn Rand delivers that in Atlas Shrugged. It's that thick.
Okay.
But once you get into it, man, it's pretty intense, and it's very inspiring.
I love it. And the title of the book again is?
Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged.
Where you work for what you want, okay? Where you work for it, where it's not given to you. That's a big message of the book, right? And the other message is, you are your business, and if you're not, you'll never make it.
Sure.
Right? So,
one thing I love, before you plug Make-A-Wish, there's something that doesn't always translate through the camera, and this is the beauty of being on this side, seeing somebody's passion and energy and drive, and just the way they answer the question. Some people have it, some people don't. If you guys can't pick up on Shareef's energy and drive and intensity, I'm sitting here like I'm ready to go. Let's go. This is awesome, man. All right, before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about Make-A-Wish, and if people want to donate or get involved, how do they do it?
Okay, so at Make-A-Wish, we grant wishes to children with life-threatening illnesses. Okay, so what does that mean? That's not just we grant a wish and the kid's happy for an hour. That means that we're changing the trajectory of that kid's life. It's that important. Okay? When you're a child, and their family's life, by the way.
Sure.
But when you're a child, you have an inability to see beyond your present circumstances. You're not a child. Children see the future and dream and fantasize, not sick children, right? So if you have no hope, you're not going to get anywhere. You know, there's a thing in race car driving that don't look where you don't want to go. You know, if I'm afraid, you know, on a turn of that wall, if I look at that wall, I'm going into that wall.
Same thing with mindset, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. So a child who's sick and sees no hope is going nowhere, right? Not only emotionally and spiritually, but also physiologically. The body doesn't heal that way. We give children hope. We give their families hope. A wish impacts a minimum of 200 people. We are impacting millions of people. So, you know, if the proverbial question is of why are we here in this world, if the answer is to impact people, then what better way can you have to impact people so that when you're gone, the good deeds that you did in this world are still happening, right? So if you ask any adult wish child, what's the most important thing that ever happened to you in your life? They're going to tell you a wish. And what about the family? You know, when you have a sick child, there's no happiness. Yeah. You're not going dancing, your husband and wife. You're not going to go and have a couple of drinks. Let's have date night. Our kid's sick. We're not going anywhere. Right? This says, hey guys, stop, take a reprieve. You all going to be happy together. We're sending you because she wants to go to the Olympics in England, and we're sending you all. Go have a good time for the first time in years. And from there, it starts to happen. I've had wish mothers come to me and say, thank you for saving my marriage. Because the stress on a husband and a wife, on a mother and a father with a sick child ends in divorce. Yeah. So what we're doing is profound.
You're making me emotional. I don't know if you see it in my eyes. You're making me emotional. That's amazing.
What we do is profound. You know, we're doing God's work here. This is really important. And there are a lot of other charities. So, you know, whatever you get involved in, great. But I could talk about Make-A-Wish. Sure. So our Make-A-Wish ball is November 2nd. Aerosmith Steven Tyler's performing. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to raise a lot of money and make people feel really good. The final thing I'll say about Make-A-Wish is that what Make-A-Wish does for me and for people who donate, who care, is much more than they do for Make-A-Wish. Okay? I owe Make-A-Wish for allowing me to feel this good about myself. I get so much happiness and pleasure from helping these kids and seeing the difference and seeing the smile on their face that I owe Make-A-Wish my life.
Interesting. Shareef, man, this blew my expectations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
I hounded him a lot. He finally commented on something. I'm like, Shareef, check your DMs.
Yeah, no, very tenacious. This is what we talked about. Doesn't quit, you know, and I'm so happy I did it and I got to have a new friend.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm going to go behind the camera and turn it off. Any parting words for the audience before we go?
Thanks for listening.
There you go.